interview fragrances. Fragrances to wear if you're going to a job interview. So obviously job interview, super stressful occasion. You want to smell good. You don't want to smell like you're sweating to death. So I've selected a small selection of fragrances, mostly kind of unisex options that are pretty agreeable for interviews. Professional, sophisticated, that sort of thing. And as always, all the fragrances that I mentioned will be available in the Amazon associate links down in the description below. Now, I'm going to start with one that I think is good just all around and fits really well for job interviews, which is Gentle Fluidity. Gentle Fluidity, which is officially a unisex option, this is just a very, very natural smelling fragrance. It has juniper berries in it, which are really nice, crisp, fresh, very foresty types of scents. In general, this is very much like you're walking through a forest. You smell pine needles. There's like a cold river nearby. You know, it's very natural, definitely. Not very sweet. Mainly you're getting the sharpness of the juniper berries mixed with some other like kind of greenish notes. Very fresh, kind of a breezy type of fragrance even. Kind of like clean laundry, very, very clean and crisp and cold type of fragrance. This, in general, is just a good, reliable fragrance for interviews, mainly because it's professional. There's no craziness about it. It's subtle, but not too subtle. You could still notice it. It actually is surprisingly strong for the type of fragrance that it is, because it is very light. Longevity is probably about 5 hours, which is pretty good, again, for this type of fragrance. But in general, just a nice, clean, crisp, and cold fragrance. Now, if you want something similar, but maybe a bit more classic, maybe a bit more on the masculine side, then Aqua Joe is obviously a classic choice. This has been around, I think, since the 90s. This has actually a lot of notes in it. A lot of them are pretty faint, but the more prominent notes, you got some rosemary, you got lots of citrus in the opening, there's some wood notes in the base notes. So even though this is a male scent, I would say it's pretty unisex, bordering on the masculine side. Unisex mainly because it's just all very natural notes, you know. It's kind of a little bit aquatic. You could think of the Italian Riviera sort of thing. That fresh kind of ocean air, the citrus, the woodsy notes. Very pleasant. Now, the downside is longevity is not great. Probably about 4 hours, maybe even less. So if you are going to a job interview, you'd want to put this on right before you go into the interview, because it's not that strong. It just smells good. So if longevity is not too big of an issue for you, you put this on at the right time. This does smell very, very nice, very natural. Again, no crazy notes. It's not gonna just blast the room with a weird smell. Just very nice, very kind of put together, classic option, and pretty affordable as well. Now, going on kind of the same vein as Gentle Fluidity, but a little bit different, we have Terre d'Hermès Eau Givrée. It also has a juniper berry note, which is why it's similar to Gentle Fluidity. The difference is, I would say this is actually even colder than Gentle Fluidity. More fresh, more clean. Eau Givrée, which is the type that this is, means like icy water or cold, frozen water. So this is, you get the idea, it's supposed to be icy cold, fresh, really sharp. At the same time, I wouldn't say it's jarring in terms of how sharp it is. It's not gonna shock the guy interviewing you. In general, it's nicely balanced, but it is, very, very cold and sharp and clean and that sort of thing. Now, in terms of comparing it to Gentle Fluidity, they are very similar, but again, I think this is a little bit more powerful, just a little bit. It might have an extra hour of longevity here, which is always a bonus. So keep that in mind if you want to go for that type of really cold and fresh type of scent. Now, if you want something a little bit different, maybe with a little bit of sweetness, then I would say Dior Homme Original. Now, this is hard to find, specifically the original, but it is definitely worth it. has a really nice iris note. And again, even though this is for men, it's formulated in a way that it could easily be a unisex option with its iris note that it has, which is sweet, but not too crazy sweet where it's not masculine anymore. You know, I would say it's still really nicely balanced. And in general, it's just a very pleasant, almost cottony, you know, kind of like a warm fabric, clean laundries type of thing. Simple fragrance, but effective. Longevity on this one is definitely better than, say, you know, Gentle Fluidity. Longevity on this is more like 6 to 7 hours, which is, you know, pretty nice. And in general, you get that nice floral, and it just smells clean, it's fresh, kind of like springtime, but not too icy cold if you want to avoid the icy coldness that some of the other fragrances have. But this still smells clean, very professional, very put together and sophisticated, which is, of course, what, you know, most people want to go for when they're going into a job interview. Now, the last one that I have, which I think does a pretty good job of what it's supposed to, this is Voyage d'Hermès, from Hermès, obviously. So this is kind of a blend of, you know, kind of mixing Gentle Fluidity with something a little bit warmer, but not too warm. This always reminds me of, I guess, the beach or maybe summertime. It has some really nice smooth green notes, kind of dewy green notes, and then some citrus as well in the opening. So citrus and green notes, but that's pretty much what you're getting. I believe there's like green tea thrown in there. This is a very, very simple fragrance, more of an intimate fragrance. It's not a super projector or anything. More along the lines of, I would say, Gentle Fluidity, but not quite as sharp. More of a natural citrusy freshness that you get from this one. So again, kind of an intermediate option if you don't want to go quite as sharp and crisp as, say, Gentle Fluidity or Terre d'Hermès, but you don't want to go, you know, to something too crazy or too warm or too heavy. This is more nice in between. Again, more of a kind of summery, citrusy type of fragrance. Now, the downside, kind of similar to Aqua Joe, is that the longevity is not great. Probably about 3 hours, 4 hours maybe. Not great on longevity, but it is a relatively light fragrance, so you can't expect crazy longevity. But again, this is one of those ones where, you know, you can put this on right before you go into the interview to make sure that you really get that smell. But besides that, that is pretty much all I have to say about interview fragrances. Hopefully you found this video helpful, and if you did, of course, leave a like and maybe subscribe. And I make videos throughout the week, so stick around for those.